Chronicles of a Play Therapist podcast is raw, unfiltered, and unapologetic, discussing mental health from a play therapy specialization, including trends, treatment approaches and techniques, theory, and the business of psychotherapy practice. Get ready to learn and play with your host, licensed clinical social worker and registered play therapist supervisor, Althea T. Simpson.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Chronicles of a Play Therapist. I am your host, Althea T. Simpson, licensed clinical social worker and registered play therapist supervisor. I am here today with a special guest, and I'm so grateful that he was able to do this episode with me here with licensed master social worker, Arron Muller, and I am going to let him introduce himself and tell him a few things about himself before we get started.
Okay, thank you out there. Yes, so my name is Arron. I am a licensed master social worker hailing from New York. I am a school social worker in addition to owning a private practice with my wife, Dr. Trudy Ann Gale. It's located in Valley Stream, New York. It's called Life Matters Psychological Services, where we provide individual, couple, and family counseling. We also do psychological testing. In addition to that, I have a t-shirt line called Black Kings Need Therapy Too, which I encourage Black men to go to therapy. I have a podcast called Arron Talks, which is therapy out in the open, giving people an insight and a feel of what therapy is like through the beautiful medium of podcasting. So I'm really excited about that, and I have some other ideas and ventures that's coming down the pike as well. So it's all about encouraging and uplifting the African-American family with their mental health and mental wellness.
Thank you so much. And I am looking forward to all that is coming up. So a year ago, right, because you presented the importance of fathers in the family at my inaugural Black Play Therapy Symposium. So, and I got so much positive feedback from that workshop. And people were coming up to me and was like, why didn't you tell us that the workshop was going to be that way? We thought it was going to be a negative spin, you know, because everybody always hear the negative narrative about Black fathers and their absence in the family. And so they was like, oh my God, so many people been telling us that they were crying in the session, coming out with all of the positivity. And I was like, well, I don't know, because I didn't make it to the session either. I was running a conference. Right. So I was like, but you choose what you're interested in. And that's the one thing about conferences. Like, if you miss it, you know, you chose what you were interested in. But I got so much positive feedback from that workshop. People were crying. And I saw people coming out crying. And I was like, what in the world going on? And they was like, oh my God, it was so inspirational. They were so authentic. And I was like, oh, okay, I really missed that, huh?
Right. Yeah, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure for Bashay and I to present, being that we're both, you know, clinicians and Black fathers. It was important, but, you know, the subject matter that we chose, that we wanted to be impactful and kind of show that those are just myths, and that they're actually, you know, a lot of Black fathers that are in the house, and the importance in the, you know, of the presence and stuff. So we were overwhelmed by the feedback we got after the session.
I'm sad I missed it, but it was like my first conference, and I was running around doing a lot of stuff. No,
you were definitely all around. You was all around the place, that's for sure.
Yeah, so it was important for me, and I was so glad that you and Bashay agreed to do it when I reached out, because the title of the conference or the theme of the conference is Healing the Black Child and Family, and that is so important in our community. We need to break the stigma of mental health and, you know, start the healing process, which is like today's episode is talking about racial trauma and the effects on young children, Black children and adolescents. And so I'm glad that I'm just glad and honored that you just take my calls or when I reach out for you to be a part of things that I'm doing, because I wanted to talk about the kid. I was scrolling through Facebook a few weeks ago. And so I came across a kid that was hiding behind, a Black boy hiding behind his SUV parked in his driveway. Right. And what I read was that he was playing basketball and he saw the cop car or the police car coming, and he hid. And that broke a piece of me. It did something to me. It broke a piece of me to see that this kid was so afraid of the police that he decided to stop something that I'm going to assume that he enjoys playing basketball, and he had to hide. Right. So when I saw that, I knew it was important for us to have this conversation. And you were the first person that I thought of, because I know that your platform is about healing, helping Black men get the mental health treatment that they need and the healing that they need. And the only thing that was running through my mind was, if this child doesn't get help now, how is that going to show up for him in adulthood?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I did see that video. So I kind of put myself in his shoes in terms of thinking, what would I go, what would go through my mind if that was me? And I can also fast forward as an adult, as a Black man driving in New York City and wanting to be invisible when a cop is behind you. I'm just like, why is he behind me? And just want to just like escape. And and I know a lot of brothers you just turn down another road, even if it's not your road that you or that your destination, just so that you are not in their view anymore. So that kind of aligns with, in terms of where I'm thinking, like as an adult, that's what some adult men do when they drive, men of color. Let me just go down the street because why they driving behind me so long? Let me turn down this other road. And then when you see them go straight, you be like, all right, cool, But imagine from a young child that you trying to avoid and be invisible, and then as an adult man trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, and all I could think about was the psychological and even some of the physical effects that this child may experience, and not just this child, because we have, and not just Black boys, I've been seeing videos, and I try not to watch that stuff because you can overwhelm and override your own system and activate your own anxiety. And especially being a trauma specialist or a trauma therapist, I deal with that stuff already, personal and close. So I try to limit what I see or, engage in on the internet. But like I said, saying that, something about that, I didn't see the video. I just saw a picture, a still frame, and the commentary about it. So, but I was thinking about the psychological effects and the physical effects that comes along with children and the trauma that they experience. And this is not even firsthand trauma. This is secondary trauma for this kid. And I think because clearly he might have maybe had a negative interaction, maybe through a relative that he's seen interact with the police. Because there's a notion that I need to be away from them. I can't trust them. Mm-hmm. They're scary. So let me just hide here. That's something that he's observed. That's something that he's witnessed. Because he did it so effortlessly, the way that he kind of just glided behind the truck. Okay.
Because watching it, I'm like, wow, he's not new to this.
Wow. Okay.
When you sit back and dissect, it wasn't like kind of impulsive reaction, like, you're trying to run to avoid, like you did something. This was a more like a very gentle kind of like cascade behind the car. And he kind of just did it with the ball behind the car. And then he watched them go and then came back out. So this is a routine. If we, dissect, and this is all because, it's all speculation, but just based off of what observed and just being clinicians, you can kind of observe that he's done this before. And 9 times out of 10, it's through negative experience where he got this idea that you can't trust the police.
And that is so sad because back in the day, it was all about officer friendly.
Right. It was. I was to go to the person, talk to an officer if you're in need. Yeah. Because, the thing is that you need to know your name, because if you get lost and you need to talk to an officer, you need to tell the officer your name, what's your name and what's your parents' name and your parents' number. That was kind of how I grew up, kind of with that kind of notion. But that's shifted now where there's a negative connotation with the police, and the police, would come to the school and is open arms and have the conversation and with kids about safety and things of that nature. And it's sad that it's shifted in terms of how they are viewed.
Yeah, and the narrative has shifted to where now, instead of the police coming to the schools and talking to kids, or in the community talking to kids about stranger danger and being safe, they're the safety concern. They're the safety issue now. Overall, not all, but overall, the police is the safety concern now. So how do you process it and deal with that as a kid. And then even as an adult, like I said, my thought is like officer friendly. And that narrative has shifted to something so negative. And then racial trauma, and even with all that's going on, because if the parents are watching it, sometimes the kids are probably watching it and they want to know, or you can't really control the environment. Like when kids are outside of your home, you can't really control what they're exposed to. And because they're interacting with other kids that, probably can watch the rerun of the news about all of the police killings and the harm, and not even just police, but there's a narrative now or an idea that people have in their head that it's okay to hurt and harm and kill Black people and that they're going to get away with it. So these kids are being exposed to that as well. And I think that it is either unacknowledged, the racial trauma that they're experiencing or exposed to, or it is unaddressed. And because I see some videos with parents having a talk with the kids and the kids crying, but it's okay. And I think it's great that parents are talking to their kids about this, but there's some psychological things that's going on that they need to have addressed by professionals so this doesn't stunt them. So as mental health professionals, what are some of the things that, we need to look out for when kids come, or some of the questions we need to ask as mental health professionals? Or do you think that this is a conversation that we should start as mental health professionals, or should we wait until the client brings it up?
Well, I guess for me, it's more of what the presenting issue is when the parent come in, because I've had parents that's been the conversation. I'm concerned about what's happening around the racial tension and climate and how my child is responding to it. In my school, as a school social worker, we were having specific conversations around that with the students, with kind of evidence-based and best practices that the school system established to be able to use with the students. So that was very, very helpful that, it was already approved. So we didn't have to really like search around for anything. So it was videos and it was questions specifically surrounding the kind of the George Floyd situation and kind of initiating conversation around that. So that was really helpful. And then I also had a conversation with some parents from a specific school in my area. They asked me to speak. And I kind of had general kind of guidelines or questions to ask for the parents to ask the children so that they could feel comfortable. And one of the things is the parents really being open and honest about their feelings about it, and then asking the children kind of see where they are in terms of their knowledge base and see what do they know so far and answer any questions that they have, age appropriate, of course. Kind of also assessing, are they sleeping? Are they eating? Are they having any, nightmares or anything like that? Or they're, crying? Kind of assessing their wellness level. Has it been impacting them? Assessing, are they watching kind of this tragedy porn, as people coin it now? How much are they watching? How much access do they have? Kind of seeing, how often do you watch it? Not coming from a place of scrutiny, but just more coming from a place of not knowing. And kind of seeing mom and dad, I watch it all the time. Or I watch it, every time I'm on Facebook. In your mind, you're like, okay, I need to start monitoring this because I really don't want them. So you don't want to kind of come off like, no, you should kind of like assess where they are first. Assess how much are they watching? Are your friends talking to you about it? Is it in a group chat? And then once they kind of give you the information, then you could assess and say, well, you know what, I really think, like as you said, you limit. Because and you're an adult and over with years of experience and expertise, and you still limit what you consume.
Yes, absolutely.
So for a child, is especially, and they don't have the tools yet, that they also limit and monitor how much they're consuming as well. But just be mindful of how, as a parent, we kind of broach that subject, because it's very important not to kind of come across accusatory or come across the yelling, but more like it's concerning because for your safety, watching too much of that.
Yeah. And I think that's an important conversation for us as clinicians to have, not only with the parents, but with the children, that you have to limit this stuff, because what a lot of people don't realize is that trauma it doesn't have to be something insidious or, that happened to you. Trauma is anything that, upsets a person's ability to cope.
Right.
Right. And when you look at trauma that way, they could be traumatizing themselves watching this over and over and over again. So having those conversations with parents and the kids. And then for me, it's been exploring, well, what is it? I mean, you seem to have a lot of anxiety around this. What is it that keeps drawing you to it? Because if the news, I don't even watch the news. And I think about the news from when I was growing up, and I would walk in the house after school and, after basketball practice or whatever sports I was playing. And my mom would be sitting in the living room and she would watch 5 o'clock news. Mm-hmm. Then she would change it to the 6 o'clock news. Then she would change. I mean, it's like news back to back to back. Right. And so it's like, what in the world? So if you saw it once, why are you watching it? What is it that you're trying to get out of it? Or what is it that you need to get out of it? And also being aware that this is activating your nervous system. And so when you're having sleep issues and stomach pains or headaches, and those are some of the physical symptoms that could come along, and people don't realize that they're in a trauma response because they, don't really know what trauma is. They think of trauma as, you go off to war, you see some things that's not so great, and then, you get PTSD or somebody who was physically abused or sexually abused. Yeah. And that's what people limit trauma to, and that's not what trauma is at all.
They think it's more direct what happened to them, but not realizing that, images or pictures or hearing things can kind of traumatize you, and kind of the repeating of it over and over again can do that to you. And because of social media and because of news, like here in New York, we have New York Ones where it plays is the news all day. So I've sat in car dealerships where it's like, didn't they just report that? And it just replays it over and over again. It's like, okay, we heard that article, we heard that, already. So we become so conditioned to that. Well, I want to be informed. I want to know this difference between being informed and then being traumatized with that.
Absolutely.
So I feel like there's an importance of an awareness about that, of knowing your limits. And I talk a lot about that in counseling, about knowing yourself and knowing how much you can handle. And I don't think people are really aware of their limits. I'm like, that's too much for me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's too much. I can't take that. And it's very powerful knowing how much you can take and how much you can. I'm like, no, I'm good.
Absolutely.
I think that empowers you to know that I don't want to harm myself and I have to protect myself. So this is as far as I can go, and I can't take any more after that. And that's what I try to educate and inform my clients about, that awareness of their own limits, because that's boundary setting too,
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you have to know, you have to know what your capacity is, and then not worry about someone else who, because I've seen, people on the internet going for the jugular for people who don't want to watch it, don't want to consume that negativity. And I think also we have to be mindful that we don't know the experiences of other people. And just because they're not vocal or they're not active or actively saying things, that doesn't mean that they don't care about what's going on in the Black community. For me, and I tell people this, and it's okay if people have a problem with this, my advocacy is not being out rioting or protesting, because for me, I don't want to go to jail. And I know that that's a possibility. And I tell people this all the time. I mean, well, not all the time, but when it comes up, for me, I can't have my steak and bourbon in jail, right? And so, but having my freedom taken away from me, I think advocacy is on different levels now. And I respect those who are out doing it. I applaud them. I think they're brave because they know that there's a possibility that they may not make it back because of the tension and stuff. So I applaud them. But my advocacy is not that advocacy. My advocacy is being on committees. My advocacy is helping those who are affected or impacted by it. My advocacy is writing articles. And, so advocacy looks different for people. And I think we have to respect how people choose. And even if they choose to do absolutely nothing, that's their choice.
That's right.
But that doesn't mean that they're not impacted by it. That doesn't mean they don't think that the racial tension and the systemic racism and all of those things that the Black community is faced with, that doesn't mean that that's not important to them.
Right. I agree out there, because I always tell people that somebody got to be in the back kitchen cooking. Everybody can't be in the forefront dancing and pop locking for everybody to see. Somebody got to be in the back eating, right?
I'm gonna be in the back cooking.
Right. But that's what makes it.
Because I like food. I'm gonna feed you, keep your strength up.
That's it. We need that. We need somebody back, lifting everybody up, pulling everybody up. That's what we need to make this work. And in that same vein, I forgot what article I interviewed for. I think it was for the Griot. Mm-hmm. And I said, it doesn't make you any less woke if you're not out there protesting, because
absolutely
there's other means, there's other ways. Like I said, personally, like, what are you doing on the ground level? And a lot of people ask me, so what can I do? What can I do to make a change? And I always say it starts on a micro level in your hometown.
Yes.
What are you doing in your community, on your block to make a difference? Coming together with your neighbors and meet with the assemblyman and addressing who's policing your neighborhood, because that's what's directly affecting you. Imagine if everyone did that for their neighborhood, the difference. And I'd say there's going to make a bunch of change, but the difference that be like, that block don't play.
Yeah,
that block knows,
absolutely.
That block is at the association meetings, whether it's virtual or in person, because they want to know who is policing the neighborhood. They on the assemblyman's or the councilman's neck about this particular officer that's been harassing the people. They know his name because he does this beat. You know what I'm saying? Every week. So being involved on that micro level, because this is our community that you are working in. You know what I'm saying? So that speaks volumes when you can commune and work together. And that's another way to empower, So what can you do on an independent level? That's great that you're protesting, but don't poo-poo somebody else who's not doing that. And they're doing something behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
That's important. That's
absolutely.
Absolutely. Those letters need to be written. Those meetings need to be attended. You know what I'm saying? And pushing legislation and agendas that needs to be changed.
Absolutely.
That needs to be done.
And people don't realize that advocacy it can be done on so many levels. And for me, starting the Black Play Therapy Symposium to give a voice to more Black clinicians, right? And also to help to our communities and making sure that the people who are treating our community is, culturally informed, using culturally responsive treatments, showing some humility because the experiences are different. So advocacy can be done in many ways. But so I am a registered play therapist supervisor. And so you have your Legos with you?
I have my Legos.
Okay. All right. So the Legos, I use Legos. I started using Legos almost a year ago. Well, no, over a year ago. So almost 2 years now. And I never used Legos in my practice because I didn't understand why people would use Legos. And so, and when people would ask me out there, are you going to do a training on Legos or do you use Legos? And I was like, no, I don't. Can't stand Legos, right? Had them all like in the house all the time. My brothers had them, didn't play with them then, but bringing them into a therapeutic space, I didn't understand. And when people would try to explain to me why, it didn't make sense. So if things don't make sense to me, I'm not going to incorporate it into my practice. And so I decided to become I'm a certified Lego Serious Play facilitator. And so I went and this is a business design strategy model. And the whole time I was in there, I had to keep redirecting myself to focus on the business because my mind kept going to, oh my God, I could do this in therapy. And I was writing things down. It's like, oh, I can easily translate this into therapy. So it made sense. when it was explained to me from a model perspective, right? And so Legos use some cognitive psychology. It used the constructivism and constructionist theories, right? And so that made the connection that was always missing for me to incorporate Legos. Okay. And so I just been incorporating Legos. I fell in love with using Legos in practice. So I asked you to demonstrate. And so while you're building your Lego model, I'm going to explain my Lego model around my thought when I saw. And so you said you saw the video. So I didn't even see the video, so I can imagine what my model would look like if I saw the video. But I saw the still frame picture. And so I did a model of my thought about this kid. So while you're building, so what is your build going to be around? Is it going to be an emotion that you felt when you saw the video, or your thought?
So that's what I'm not really sure about as I attempt to open this box.
Okay.
I'm not really sure, because I've always been familiar with Legos, and I just thought it was a great idea to use with the children, just to get them to kind of be present and just use their hands for something and have a conversation, because I'm always looking for ways to get kids to open up. So I always use it kind of like a way to get them to kind of be free and kind of have conversation. And I have some for my son. He's 3, but I always hide it because my daughter is 1. And she's in
she's putting everything in her mouth pretty much.
Everything. There's an oral fixation that's out of this world with her. So he is forbidden from using the Legos until she successfully passes that stage.
Oh, okay.
So I put the Legos away. But I always found them fascinating. But as a child, I never really cared for them. I don't think I had the patience. So
me either.
So I don't know what I'm actually doing. I'm just going to be building something based off of
the directive. So as a
so you're going to tell me what to do?
No, I'm just going to give you the directive. So the directive is, so I'll just give you the directive. Build a model based off the video that you saw, an emotion or your thought. And so the thing about it is just it's hands on brick, and you don't think too much about it. And that's the great thing about play therapy, is that we incorporate creative things into sessions so people can, so the client can reduce that anxiety, we encourage them not to give too much thought around it. Just build, and then you see what comes out of it.
That's hard out there because I want to be kind of perfect and do it right. So I don't
anything that you do is going to be right because it's your emotion or it's your thought, and your thoughts and emotions are valid. And so we don't name what it is for you. You name it for you, and whatever you build. But the thing is that you're going to be explaining what it is. So even if it makes sense to no one else, it makes sense to you. And you are what matters. Your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions is what matters. So as you build, don't give it too much thought. Just hands on bricks and let your hands just be attuned with the bricks. You look at it, you're like, yo, whatever. But the funny thing is, when I do this with adults, because I incorporate Legos and I work with a lot of veterans now. So I took some time off. I am a child and adolescent specialist, but I've always saw adult clients as well because I am also a trauma professional. But I took some time off working with children. So I only have 2 children in my practice now. And so I primarily work with vets. And when I started incorporating Legos, they gave me the same look you gave me. And they like, what? But then they get to playing with the Legos and start building. And when we start processing what they built, they're like, oh my goodness. Same with children and adults.
Right.
And one of the things, people think that play therapy is not for adults, or there's a lot of questions about why would you use it with adults? Well, for one, a lot of adults didn't get an opportunity to play as children. So because whether they were parentified, had to, cook, clean, watch their other siblings, some even had trauma that didn't allow them to play. So
didn't have the resources,
yes.
a number of reasons.
Yes. Yeah. And so when I get that side eye sometimes from adults, that's like, you want me to do what? And I'm like, if you just try it, and if you don't like it, we won't do it again, but we can stop at any time. But I think that it'll be something that will help you move through your trauma or move through your experiences, because what creative and expressive therapies like play therapy does, it helps to help the right brain, which is your creative side, to connect with the left brain, the cognitive side, and help you to talk. So play therapy helps individuals and families. I even use it with couples. So it helps them to be able to communicate things that they otherwise would not be able to put words to. So while you're building yours, so I did my model beforehand, so you could build yours. And
of course, okay. you have purple in there.
Oh, of course, purple and pink and blue. Okay. So this is my Lego model. So I did a build. So if I was a client and I was seeing me, I would say build the same directive I gave you, build an emotion or a thought that you had connected to the video or the picture that you saw of little black boy or the young black boy hiding from the police in his driveway.
Right.
And so my model is, okay, so this is a wall, a brick wall. And I saw this as, so my initial thoughts was and this is the road right here. So this little thing right here in the middle, that's the road. I'll take my communication tower off and put it in. So this is the road to this brick road, the road to recovery, because there's going to be a block and a brick wall for the trauma that this kid has experienced. If it's not addressed, all of the problems that all of the roadblocks that he's going to have as an adult. So this is him on top of these roadblocks or this brick wall, and he's holding a globe of the world, right? And inside, if you could see the different colors on the inside, these are bricks of pain, hurt, anxiety, fear that he has, and that if it doesn't get addressed, all of these blocks and this brick wall going to carry on into his adulthood. And so then you have these other children that are also feeling the effects of racial trauma and injustices. And this beaded rope here are their tears, right? So these are their tears, his tears and the tears of these kids that they're going to continue to have if the systems, now this block right here represents systems, if the systems don't get it together. And so the systems, you have the solid block are the systems that just don't get it or don't care about racial injustice and how it's affecting the Black community, and the kids in general go unacknowledged. And so then you have these little transparent blue bricks here for those who get it, but they are in between those who don't. So it's like they're stifled from helping. And so then there's an elephant, that these systems, the elephant in the room is these systems that's given a long arm to the police to continue to commit crimes and harm to Black men and women and children, so to the Black community. So they have a long arm and it's still it's going unaddressed. Or they're putting Band-Aids on it, but they have a long arm to do harm to the Black community. And so I have this here as a protective barrier. We have to start protecting these kids, protecting their emotions, protecting their feelings, protecting their mind and them in general. So, and then I have the angel here. The angel is the mental health professionals who will be treating these kids because of racial trauma. And they're on fire. They're fed up. They're pissed off. So that's why the angel holding the fire. Wow. And so this is what I thought when I saw that picture. So that's the power of using Legos and other expressive techniques like sand tray, music, and art and games in it. It's like you build out this thought and then you explain it. And when you look at it, because when I saw it, I was like, wow, this is really detailed. And like I said, I didn't see the video. I didn't even know it was a video. I only saw
the video.
Yes.
I mean, you're putting me to shame about what.
No shame.
Nah, I ain't playing with you. We're not playing. We're not going to play this game. I'm out.
You said you out.
Tag me out this game.
So just show me what you have. It's okay. What do you have and tell me what your thoughts were. Listen, I've been doing this for a while. You ain't going to play me like that. You ain't going to play me like that. No, I've been doing this for a while, and this is like, I do this all the time. I'm a play therapist. I incorporate this all the time. And plus, I have the background knowledge being able to teach clients to build their emotions and feelings and process it this way. But it really is the directive, and then you just build, right? But I'm going to tell you, the first 3 days of that training, because it was an intensive training from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day.
Oh, wow.
And then one day it was from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we only had breaks to go to the bathroom and to eat our lunch. And that was like 15, 20 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very serious and very intense. So the first 2 days, all of my bottles would fall apart. I couldn't keep them together. And everybody was laughing because you could tell when somebody's not used to using Legos. My stuff, I had to keep rebuilding my stuff. But
look at you now. That was a masterpiece that belonged in the Lego store.
But it really is. And then just like with play therapy, and then like if I was using art and a client would say, I'm not good at, it's really not about how it looks. It's about what's coming out of it. Right. So that's what it's really about, what's coming out of it. And for me, I draw stick figures. If you look at a lot of my art, it's the sun, trees, grass, stick figures, but it's about what you're trying to say or what you need to say.
Okay. All right. So based off of that, and you're trying to make me feel better, I have this red, which represent kind of the fear, right? So red is kind of like a, fiery color, like a passion color. So just as calm as he was, and kind of the kind of the youthfulness, I think of the green, and it was like he was in a yard. So I'm like relating to green grass, and it's kind of like calmness. He was in the yard, youth. I think about all of that stuff with this green. But then on top of that was that fear. And the fear could turn into like anger. And we don't know what else he feels. What kind of his mindset, what's the language like in the house, if family been done dirty by, those agencies before, those powers that be before, that kind of gave him that notion not to trust them and to hide from them. So I kind of created kind of on top of this youthfulness and playing in the grass and, being out there on that summer. It was a warm day. Kind of this, on top of that is kind of this fear, kind of this fury and anger and passion.
See, you did an amazing job. that is it. And how you explained it. So it's really not about the build. It's about what you were thinking or what you were feeling. And you did an amazing job at explaining that. And that's one of the things as therapists who are practicing play therapy and other expressive therapies, and I tell therapists all the time when we're training, because all of my workshops are experiential, because I think we have to make the connection and the experiences to what we're going to have clients do. And so I always tell them it's not about how it looks, it's what's coming out of it. So, and that's something that we have to reiterate to our clients as well, because that will stifle them from processing what they need to process. And look at what you did and what you said. Oh my God, that was amazing. You said, I ain't playing with you. So, well, any final thoughts that you have about racial trauma, working, helping our community as mental health professionals the children, adults, families, because our entire community, and even helping us as therapists, because we all are affected by racial trauma.
Yeah. So I think it's important that everyone kind of take inventory of what they're feeling, the emotions that it's bringing on, and finding and seeking help in whatever way you need to deal with that. As parents of children that, that are old enough to recognize what's going on, have those conversations. Don't try to ignore it. Even as comfortable, if you need to cry, show them that it hurts you too. I'm hurt by it too. And then ask them, what would you say to one of the family members, those that lives were lost? What would you like to do as a family? Kind of having this open dialogue, so kind of shifting from sweeping things from under the rug and start having more open dialogue and conversation around these thoughts and feelings. Whether you're a clinician or anybody, I think it's important that we all have these conversations with our loved ones, and even with yourself, and like, how am I feeling about this? Kind of take your own pulse. Okay. And monitor what you are watching. You don't have to watch everything.
That is super important. All right, Arron, so tell everyone how they can follow you on social media or get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you.
So on social media, on Instagram, I'm the _therapist, where I am posting information about mental health, resources, and the links to the Arron podcast, which right now I have the Husband Files feature. So
I saw that, yes.
So now I'm having conversations with Black husbands about marriage, about what they would like to work on, some of their strengths. So really having an in-depth, real, kind of like an open therapy session. Yeah. What it would look like. And these are real people with their real issues, and they're ready to kind of just talk about and kind of get feedback on what they would like to, what they should work on or things like that. So I
love it. Oh my God, I love it. Yes.
So like I said, Arron, my name is Arron, and you can find me on Instagram at the _therapist.
Okay. And do you have a YouTube channel?
Not yet. So okay. I am working on kind of expanding in terms of like being out there media wise. I was good with being behind the scenes, and
I know, right?
So now working on like YouTube and stuff next. So I'm doing it gradually.
Okay. I don't know why I thought I saw something that you posted on YouTube. Maybe that was Instagram.
Maybe it's Instagram.
Yeah, maybe it was Instagram. Okay. Well, if you all want to see Arron's amazing build, and for those who are visual, you can follow Chronicles of a Play Therapist on YouTube and see the video of my model and Arron's model, and how we, kind of put our thoughts and emotions into a Lego model around the young Black boy, which I wish him well. I hope he's getting help that he needs. The young Black boy who hid from the police in his own yard after while he was playing basketball. So thank you all so much for tuning in to this educational and informational session, Chronicles of a Play Therapist. I am your host, Althea T. Simpson, and you all have a wonderful day, week, month. All right, take care.
Chronicles of a Play Therapist is sponsored by Unicorn Life Play Therapy Academy, where play therapy is magical. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe in your favorite podcast app and follow us on YouTube. Chronicles of a Play Therapist is intellectual property of Althea T. Simpson. All rights reserved.